Right now, baby boomers own 32 million homes in the United States. That is 2 out of every 5 owner-occupied houses in America controlled by a single generation. And between now and 2036, Fannie Mae projects that up to 14.6 million of those homeowners will exit. Not maybe, not if the market shifts. This is actuarial math. Biology doesn't negotiate. The oldest boomers turned 80 this year, and the clock on the largest transfer of residential real estate in American history is no longer theoretical. It's ticking. But here's what nobody's telling you. This tsunami won't hit everywhere equally. Some markets will barely feel it. Others are about to drown in inventory. And if you know which ones, and more importantly, when you're looking at the buying opportunity of a generation. Let's start with the raw demographics, because this is where the story begins and ends. 76 million Americans were born between 1946 and 1964, the baby boom generation. They became the largest homeowning cohort in history. According to Census Bureau data, Americans over 55 now control 54% of all owner-occupied housing. That's up from 44% in 2008. In just 15 years, the concentration of housing wealth in older Americans jumped 10 full points, and that concentration has now peaked. We're at the top of the curve. The question isn't whether these homes re-enter the market, it's how fast and where. Fannie Mae published a landmark study projecting what happens next. Between 2026 and 2036, they estimate 13.1 to 14.6 million older homeowners will permanently exit homeownership. That's through downsizing, moving into assisted living, or passing their homes to heirs. Now put that in context. In the previous decade, 2006 to 2016, only 9.2 million older homeowners exited. So we're looking at a 42% increase in the number of homes changing hands. And this isn't speculation. These are demographic projections based on known population data. Every one of these people has already been born. The math is locked in. The only variable is timing. Now here's the pushback you'll hear from every real estate bull on the internet. They'll say boomers are staying put. And technically, they're right for now. A Redfin survey found that 78% of Americans over 60 plan to age in place. And that sounds like the tsunami is canceled, right? But here's what that talking point leaves out. Intent doesn't override biology. The average American enters assisted living at age 84. The oldest boomers, born in 1946, hit that threshold in 2030. The youngest, born in 1964, hit it around 2048. That gives us an 18-year window of accelerating exits. And it doesn't matter how many people tell a pollster they want to stay in their 4-bedroom colonial. When mobility declines, when a spouse passes, when the stairs become impossible, the house goes on the market. Or it goes to an heir who almost certainly will sell it. In fact, a record 340,000 homes were transferred through inheritance in just the last 12 months alone. So where does this hit hardest? Zillow's research team mapped every metro area in the country and projected how much of the current housing stock would be released by boomers. And the results are dramatic. Tampa, Florida leads the nation. 33.2% of all currently owner-occupied homes in the Tampa, St. Pete Clearwater Metro will be released by 2037, 1 in 3 homes. Tucson, Arizona comes in second. Then Miami, then Orlando. Then Dayton, Ohio, and that one surprises people. But the pattern is clear. Retirement destinations and aging Rust Belt cities are ground zero. Beyond the top 5, the metros that round out the most vulnerable list include Pittsburgh at 30.2%, Buffalo, Rochester, Cleveland, Knoxville, and a cluster of Virginia markets. Charlottesville at 42% boomer homeownership, Lynchburg at 41%, Richmond at 39%. Nationally, Zillow projects 27.4% of today's owner-occupied stock will turn over from boomer exits by 2037. But here's where the analysis gets really interesting and really useful for buyers. Not every market will respond to this supply wave the same way. In growing Sun Belt metros like Phoenix, Dallas, and Atlanta, new demand from younger buyers and transplants can absorb a lot of that inventory. Prices might soften, but they probably won't collapse. The real opportunity and the real danger, depending on which side you're on, is in the Midwest and Northeast. More than 40% of U.S. counties are already losing population. Another 14% are what demographers call senior dominant, meaning 75% or more of all household heads are 65 or older. These are places where there simply aren't enough younger buyers to absorb what's coming. Think smaller metros in Ohio, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, West Virginia, rural Michigan. When a wave of homes hits a market with no demand behind it, prices don't just dip, they crater. Now the Sun Belt story is more nuanced than people think. Yes, metros like Phoenix and Dallas will absorb inventory because they have job growth pulling in younger residents. But the retirement-specific corridors, coastal Florida, Tucson, parts of the Carolinas, those are different. They attracted boomers precisely because they were retirement destinations. The local economies are built around serving an aging population. And when that population starts exiting en masse, you don't just lose housing demand, you lose the economic engine. Tampa is the clearest example. With a third of its housing stock turning over in the next decade, even strong in-migration can't fully offset that kind of supply shock. And remember, a lot of those boomer homes are larger, older properties that need significant renovation. They're not move-in ready for a young family on a budget. That renovation discount is where the real opportunity hides. So how do you evaluate your specific market? Here's the framework. Pull up your county on the Census Bureau's Data Explorer. It's free. You're looking for 3 numbers. First, the percentage of homeowners over 65. If it's above 35%, you're in a high turnover zone. Second, the county's net migration rate. Are people moving in or out? A county losing population with high senior homeownership is a double negative. Supply is coming and demand is leaving. Third, the months of inventory on your local MLS. If you're already above 6 months, which is a balanced market, and the boomer wave hasn't even started yet, you're looking at a market that could tip into serious buyer territory within 2 to 4 years. Stack all 3 of those signals together, and you have a heat map that's far more accurate than any national prediction. All right, here's the part everyone's been waiting for, the timing. Because knowing where is only half the equation. Based on the demographic data, here's how the wave breaks down. Phase 1, 2026 to 2028, is the early signal period. The oldest boomers cross 80. You'll see inventory creep up in the most concentrated markets first. Your Tampas, Tucsons, Pittsburghs. Prices won't crash, but they'll soften. This is when smart money starts identifying target neighborhoods. Phase 2, 2028 to 2032, is the acceleration. The bulk of the boomer generation enters their late 70s and early 80s. Assisted living transitions spike. Inheritance transfers multiply. This is when inventory floods the most vulnerable markets. If you're buying in the Rust Belt or retirement corridors, this is your window. Phase 3, 2032 to 2037, is the long tail. By now the pattern is established. Smaller, slower growth markets are deep in oversupply. Growing metros have mostly absorbed their wave. Late buyers in Phase 3 are picking through what's left. So what do you actually do with this information today? 3 moves. First, build your watch list. Pick 5 to 10 metros from the high vulnerability list and start tracking their inventory monthly on Realtor.com or Redfin. You want to see the trend line, not a snapshot. You're looking for 3 consecutive months of rising inventory. That's your early warning. Second, get pre-positioned financially. If you're planning to buy in 2028 to 2032, start building your down payment and repairing your credit now. The buyers who capitalize on oversupply are the ones who can actually close. And third, this is the one nobody talks about, build relationships with estate attorneys and probate courts in your target markets. A huge percentage of boomer homes will transfer through estates, not traditional listings. The probate pipeline is where the deepest discounts live, and most buyers don't even know it exists. One more thing, and this could be the biggest factor of all. Not every boomer home hits the open market. A growing number are being transferred directly to heirs. Cotality, formerly CoreLogic, reported that 340,000 homes were transferred through inheritance in the last 12 months. That's a record. And here's the wild card. Most heirs don't want these houses. They live in a different city. The property needs work. They want the cash. That creates a shadow supply of homes that never shows up in MLS inventory data, but absolutely pushes prices down in the neighborhoods where they exist. When a third of the homes in a subdivision are being sold by out-of-state heirs who just want to liquidate, that's not a normal market. That's a fire sale with a blazer on. And for buyers who understand this dynamic, it's where the real deals are made, before the broader market even notices the shift. Look, this isn't a crash prediction. Crashes are sudden. This is something more powerful and more predictable, a slow-motion demographic wave that you can see coming from a decade away. The data is public. The math is simple. And the opportunity is real, but only if you're positioned before the crowd figures it out. If this breakdown was useful, subscribe, because we're going to be tracking these 37 markets month by month as the wave builds. Drop a comment with your metro area, and I'll tell you where it sits on the vulnerability scale. This is the kind of shift that builds generational wealth if you see it early enough.